Can a client emerge from a tragedy at a higher level of happiness than they experienced before? Dr. Sonja Lyubomirsky, a psychology professor and researcher, has studied this phenomenon known as post-traumatic growth. Sonja reveals why this happens, but not only that, she shares new perspectives on how to foster it.
So imagine that someone had a bad event, like whether it's a diagnosis or losing a job, losing a spouse. And for some people, they're like this in happiness, they go down and they never recover. And that's actually a pretty small subset. Other people, they go down in their happiness and then they go back up to the same level. And that's the majority. And so a lot of resilience research is on that. And that's literally what resilience is. You bounce back. So you bounce to the same level you were before. But what I think is the most fascinating are people who are kind of going down, and then when they come back up, they actually come to a higher level than they were before. And that's called post-traumatic growth. Not to say that we should all experience trauma so we could experience that, but if you have experienced it, some people just are able to, they grow, they appreciate their life more, they feel like life is so precious. I didn't really appreciate that before. They kind of live day to day. But, and what's interesting to me are the individual differences. What makes that person special that see it that way? And actually, my very, at the beginning, when I first started doing research on happiness, back when I was in grad school, my advisor back then, and he had this friend, talked about this, he had a friend who was a Holocaust survivor. Well, actually, two different people he knew who were Holocaust survivors. And one of them said, it's indecent or obscene to ever be happy again after the Holocaust. Like after that happened, how can anyone be happy again? And the other person said, it's insane or indecent to be unhappy again. Like how can you not enjoy life, regular life, after you've survived the concentration camp? So it's just, it kind of puts into this stark contrast, this very different perspective that some people have. Fortunately, most people have the more positive perspective. And they grow. And so anyway, that's what's most interesting to me about resilience. There's also some research that shows sort of how people can become more resilient. Laura King, who's at Missouri, she does research on meaning. And so she finds, for example, that, some people make this distinction between happiness and meaning. Like, you could be happy or you could have meaning. And I've always thought that they really go together. It feels good when you feel like you have meaning in your life. And so that's exactly what she finds. She actually did this really great study where she measured people throughout the day. And she asked people, how happy do you feel? And how much meaning do you feel right now? And on days that you felt happier, you felt you had more meaning. And on days you had more meaning, you felt happier. So they kind of cause each other. And lots of others. She also studies coping. And she finds, for example, getting back to coping, that when people experience negative events or like real major adversity, they they actually can become happier and they become more mature. And so she, for example, has studied women who have kids with Down syndrome, and sort of she studied their life stories and how they describe, when they first found out, and basically she finds that most of them have become kind of more mature through that experience, more kind of cognitively complex. It's like they think about life in a more complex way. She also looked at, so she looked at different groups, women who got divorced after many, many years. So older women who are divorced after like very long marriages, suddenly their identity has changed and how they've coped with that. And she also studied gays and lesbians who've come out and how, the hard parts of that. So anyway, so she finds that people not only get happier after some of these very difficult events, but they become more mature.
When major adversity hits, it can recalibrate a person's perspective in ways that they may never have imagined. But now I'd like to hear from you. What are your thoughts on helping a client grow after they've experienced a trauma? And how will you use these ideas in your work? Please leave a comment below, and thanks for watching.